will be posted after we complete it. We will also be sharing slides and resources after the webinar. So everything that we reference here, as well as signposting you to other materials, we will also do that. We will be running a Q&A session, as I mentioned, at the end of the presentation. As we move through the presentation, please feel free to submit your questions via the Zoom chat function. And then when we do get to the Q&A session, we will also have, I think, the opportunity to give people the chance to speak if they would like to and ask their question verbally. In the meantime, I think please mute your microphone when you are not speaking, just to ensure that everyone can hear the person who is speaking at that point in time. So before we get started, I'd love to introduce myself. My name is Janet Southern McCormick. I'm a Senior Programme Manager with ChallengeWorks, and I'm joined in facilitating the session by my colleague Naseen Watson, who is a Programme Manager. So thank you for joining us today. Just to have a quick check in terms of what we're covering. So we'll be breaking down what the Sustainable Cities Challenge Detroit is, and that will include what we're looking for, and also a little bit more detail in terms of entering the challenge itself. And then, as I said, finishing up with a Q&A session at the end. So let's jump straight into the meat of this and answer that first question. What is the Sustainable Cities Challenge Detroit? And to do that and to answer that, we're going to show you this brief video.
Movement is at the heart of every city. When we can move more freely, we can achieve more. But how can we continue to make our cities smarter, more responsive, more resilient? How can we build the cities of tomorrow today? The Sustainable Cities Challenge is seeking innovators from around the world to bring low-carbon solutions for the movement of goods in and out of Detroit's thriving eastern market. With up to $3 million in funding available, we are seeking clean freight solutions that will benefit Detroit and also cities all over the world. So as the needs of people evolve, cities can continue to grow with them. Together, we can work to build a more sustainable future and help to transform the lives of millions of people. Join us, the Sustainable Cities Challenge.
Brilliant, thank you. Hopefully you enjoyed that video, and we'll get into a little bit more of the detail of some of the points that were referenced in that video. But first of all, just to share a bit of an overview. The Sustainable Cities Challenge as a whole aims to really harness and leverage the power, the creativity, and the energy of innovation to help improve access to safe, equitable, and sustainable mobility solutions for all. So as part of that, we have 3 city challenges that we have designed and are launching. Detroit is obviously the one that we are talking about today, which launched on the 29th of May. Venice, which is all about embracing sustainable mobility, launched last week, and next week we'll be launching the Varanasi City Challenge. But of course, Detroit is why we're here today. So let's kind of go into that in a little bit more detail. First of all, who is involved in the Detroit Challenge? So up front and center, we have the Toyota Mobility Foundation, who is the funder and lead delivery partner of this Sustainable Cities Challenge. And has really been leading the charge on this initiative. We're working very closely with the City of Detroit as host city, and the office, specifically the Office of Mobility Innovation, to help work with us over the past few months to design this challenge and the intricacies of it. Also, as part of the group working on this challenge, you have the delivery partner ChallengeWorks, of whom I work for. And we run challenge prizes and other types of open innovation competitions to attract innovators to solve some of the world's biggest problems. Working closely with us is the World Resources Institute, which is a global research organization and really helps to develop solutions that are practical to help improve people's lives and ensure that nature can thrive. And of course, we have 89up, who is our public relations and marketing partner. So let's move on to why Detroit and why Eastern Market. Everyone knows Detroit as the Motor City. It's not new to the world of innovation and mobility innovation at that. Detroit's Eastern Market plays a crucial role in the food industry. It's the largest public market district in the US and is a hub for food production, for processing, packaging, and distribution. It has over $360 million in wholesale food sales, and it exports nearly double that into international markets. So it's a critical piece of the landscape. It's a huge economic and logistical hub with over 2 million visitors being attracted on an annual basis. It's located in a very strategic place, connecting two international airports. You've got border crossings to Canada. You've got major highways within the US. And it organizes a number of different stakeholders across the food industry, from farmers, wholesalers, logistic operators to distributors, and it feeds millions through their coordinated activities. And there's a real opportunity for innovation and expansion of Eastern Market. It has a clearly defined neighborhood framework plan that really sets to expand both residential housing, but also food manufacturing, and including within that green buffer improvements and optimized trucker routes. It's really aiming to double its market footprint and increase freight traffic over the next 20 to 30 years. There's huge ambition here. And you can see from the quote we've included here from the City of Detroit's Office of Mobility Innovation, Chief Tim Sluicer. Detroit represents over 100 years of innovation in transportation. And there's growing opportunity and space for that innovation to continue. So let's move on to what the problem is. In terms of the current challenges, there are a few that we're playing around with here. The first is that we need to harmonize food production and distribution with the clean freight initiatives. But at the same time, we need to address environmental pressures without disrupting business operations that are working in a really competitive market with very razor-thin margins. And so what should solutions look like? Well, really, they need to be adding value to the freight ecosystem, and they also need to be integrating without significant cost increases. But even more so, they need to be easily adopted and readily used by freight operators and other stakeholders within the Eastern Market ecosystem. So with that, I'm going to hand over to my colleague Naseen, who's going to take us into a little bit more detail of the nuts and bolts of this challenge.
Thank you, Janet. So thank you for giving us all of that context. Up here we have the challenge statement. And as you all know, or hopefully know, this is an open innovation challenge. And our challenge statement is our call to action to innovators. It really articulates what the challenge aims are, and it tells us about the desired outcomes without predetermining exactly what the solutions are. So this is a very important summary of what we're looking at. And if we go into what that is exactly, I'll just read it out because I think it's pretty short and to the point. So we're looking for innovators to demonstrate solutions that reduce fossil fuel use and cut costs of freight operation in Eastern Market. And solutions should address one or more of the following: so reducing idling time, reducing partial loads or empty miles, reducing reliance on fossil fuels or cold chain logistics and freight management, and reducing implementation costs and barriers to adopting clean freight technologies. So to sum it all up, we're really looking for any solution that's going to make freight a little bit more environmentally sustainable by reducing that fossil fuel use, but also the operational costs are going to be very important. As I mentioned, this is an open innovation challenge. So it's very important to stress at this point that we're not really telling you how you should solve these issues or how you should solve the problem. We're really focused on the potential impact at this stage, which means that we are open to a wide variety of different solutions. Having said that, we do have some example solutions up here to share with you. That doesn't mean that if you aren't, if your solution isn't on the screen, if you don't see it here, that you're not going to be eligible for this competition or you're going to be penalized in any way. These are just examples. So just do keep that in mind. And so when it comes to reducing that fossil fuel use and in a way that is cost efficient and helps with the operational costs, we have two different groups that we found during our research stage when we were developing this challenge. So one is the monitoring and the systems. So that could be through things like predictive shipping, dynamic route planning. It could be supply chain data or dashboards or APIs. It could be the Internet of Things, the IoT. So the different ways that you can use data and information and these different platforms to make freight more efficient. It could also be hardware. So things like the kinetic energy recovery systems where you use the kinetic energy for braking to power some of the needs of freighting, especially during the cold chain. It could be coating technology like nanotechnology, which is a new thing out there, or auxiliary power units, solar panels. So you can see a variety of ways that you can approach this. It could be actually going in and installing something in a truck and testing it out. It could be a system. It could be a combination of both these things. But just to emphasize, if you don't see yourself up on the screen, doesn't mean that you aren't eligible for this challenge. These are just a few examples of what solutions could look like. And that takes us nicely into why you should enter this challenge. And I would ask, why wouldn't you want to enter this challenge? So an open innovation challenge like this is designed to support innovators as you create something new or as you adapt your solution to a new context or even scale up your solution, right? So these challenges are designed to inspire and kindle innovation in a particular area, such as freight or such as Eastern market. And so we designed this whole program to support you and de-risk that process for you. And what do I mean by that, like de-risking that process for you? So we have a package that includes funding, and you can see up on the screen, we have different stages of funding depending on where you are in the program. And I'm going to go over that whole structure in a little bit. But we have an initial grant, which once you enter and you start to develop your solution, you have some funding to help you do that. And then once you get to the finalist stage and you're beginning to develop, to demonstrate your impact, you have a bit of a larger grant. And then if you are selected as a winner, we have up to 1.5 million that's going to be split across the winners, and that's in US dollars. And so those packages of funding will really support you as you enter Eastern market for the first time, as you're taking your solution and adapting it. So it's not all on you to go in there and put your money on the line or to try and find funding. We're really helping and supporting you to do that. Another key thing that this challenge really supports you with is relationship building and connections. And so we are working on this with the city of Detroit, who has a very close working relationship with Eastern Market as well. And so participating in this challenge will give you access to various officers in the city. We will hopefully help facilitate these types of connections and really help you build those relationships. And of course, we do also have resources that we're putting together. We're putting together different types of data to help you as you develop your solutions, as well as an in-person academy where we will bring all the innovators together. You'll get to meet the other innovators on this challenge. You'll get to actually go on the ground, explore Eastern market and explore the situation there as you develop your solutions. So like I said, if your impact is aligned with the impact of this challenge, I don't see why you shouldn't enter. This will really de-risk this whole process for you. And by the time you get to the end of it, hopefully you will have very strong connections with Eastern Market Detroit. You'll be able to implement your solution. It could even lead to further investment because you have actually gone and demonstrated your solutions. And so investors will actually see what you've achieved and accomplished through this process. So let's get into the timeline. And I realize that we've thrown a whole bunch of information at you. So I hope that you are noting down your questions. Feel free to already put them in the chat. And once we get to the Q&A session, we will be addressing those. So this is the overall timeline. As you know, the Detroit Challenge is already open for entries, and the entry deadline is the 12th of September. After that, we'll go through a period where we will be reviewing and assessing your entries. And then we will be selecting the semi-finalists who will begin that stage. And I'm just going to add this up here. So you can see we'll be selecting up to 10 semi-finalists. And then from November to March 2025, you'll go through a period of solution development, relationship building. So you're taking the solution that you entered with and you're adapting it to the context on the ground, and you're beginning to do the initial testing. And then once we get to March 2025, we will be selecting up to 5 finalists, and they will receive a grant of up to 130,000 each for solution demonstration and refinement. So in this period, it's really about you've adapted your solution, you've developed it further, and now you're showing the impact of that solution according to your plans and what you've told us you're going to be doing. And then finally, in March 2026 onwards, we will be selecting up to three winners. And like I mentioned, we have a total pot of 1.5 million US dollars to be shared amongst the 3 winners. And what this really means is that we could have 3 winners, we could have 2, we could have 1. So the maximum theoretically that you can get is 1.5, but it is going to be shared. So it's probably going to be less than that. And so, yeah, this is the overall timeline. Things might shift from here to there, but this is overall what the challenge structure looks like. And don't worry, all of this is on our website. All of this is in the entrant handbook, so you can always make reference to it. And I am going to note one thing, which is there is that in-person academy that we mentioned, and this will be from 9th to 12th December 2024. So if you are entering, and please do keep that in mind that you might need to travel to Detroit during that time period. As I said, any questions, just note them down, but we'll just move on to what we're looking for in the interest of time. Because this is a challenge, we do have an eligibility criteria on who can actually enter. And I'm not going to read it out verbatim. This is on our website. This is in the entry handbook. We do need you to be focusing within the city of Detroit and, of course, eventually Eastern Market. You can be a single organization or you can be a consortia, so you can be a group that's come together for this. However, if you are a consortia, you do need to pick a lead entrant who will actually contract with the Toyota Mobility Foundation. So we're only going to contract with one organization, and it's up to you as the consortia to manage how that works. You must be a legally incorporated organization. So this is not open to individuals. Unfortunately, you do not need to be an organization. And we are open to innovators from across the world. So if you're in another country, you can still enter, but we are operating in English and entries must be in English. And you must be able to travel to the city of Detroit. Like I mentioned, we had the in-person academy, but also to be able to actually go and test your solutions in Detroit is very important. And being able to own or have permission to use your intellectual property is important. But you can go in our handbook, read that in detail. And then if you have any questions, there are lots of opportunities to ask us. So let's delve a little bit deeper into how we're going to be selecting the semi-finalists, the finalists, and the winners. And so up on the screen, you will see a judging criteria. So to ensure that we have a process that is transparent and that is fair, each and every entrant, each and every finalist, semi-finalist is going to be judged by a group of assessors and expert judges against this criteria. So all of this, again, is in the handbook, and you can go in at your own pace and read through it, but I'll just give you a summary of what we're looking for, and hopefully this will help you understand what we want from you when you're putting together your entries. So we have 6 criteria here. The first one is the reduction of fossil fuel use, which shouldn't come as a surprise because we had that in the challenge statement. And here we're really looking for the potential to reduce fossil fuel use within the freight in the Eastern market. Innovation in Eastern market, are you proposing something that is going to improve, or is it something new that hasn't yet been tried in Eastern market? So we're looking at that impact, that improvement beyond what is already available. And then put adoption potential by businesses. So here you really need to be able to understand the users, the circumstances, their needs, their expectations in order to be able to build relationships with them and to design for their needs. So at this stage, of course, we don't expect you to have a relationship with the Eastern market, but we do expect you to put together a plan on how you're going to build that relationship. You can have a few assumptions that you will then go on to verify. So you don't need to get in touch with the Eastern market right now and build that relationship. You just need to tell us how you're going to go about that. Technology maturity as well. We'd like you to tell us how you're going to progress in your technology maturity throughout the process. So this is the state of planning, the development and testing at each stage, including that co-design with users, how you're going to do offsite testing, how you're going to actually demonstrate on-site in Eastern market as well. And so we're open to solutions with any technology maturity right now. So if you are just starting off your solution, we do expect you to tell us, okay, so you're starting from this point, how are you going to get to actually demonstrating impact by the end of the challenge? That's what we're really looking for at this stage. And then as you progress, we would like to see evidence that your technology maturity is progressing with you. And then potential to scale. So of course, we don't want solutions, and I'm sure this is within everybody's interest as well. Nobody's looking for a short-term program that's just a year, and then after that, there's no projection into the future. We are looking for solutions that are taking into account the long-term market viability beyond the lifespan of the challenge. So again, at this point, it's all about the plan. How are you going to do that? What have you already achieved, if anything? And then as you progress through the challenge, it's demonstrating that you are verifying a lot of your assumptions. And then finally, capacity to deliver, of course, showing us that you actually have the skills needed to deliver or the partnerships. And if you don't have those yet, how are you going to get them? How are you going to use the grant funding and the access that's provided through the challenge to ensure that you have the capacity to deliver? So again, I know I have spoken a lot and provided you with a lot of information, but don't worry, all of this is online. And I'm just going to go to the next screen. We even have additional detail where we break down at this stage, at the entry stage, what exactly are we looking for? So please definitely go take a look at that. And we have lots of opportunities for you to engage with us even beyond this webinar to ask us additional questions. So I'll go into how to actually enter the challenge. And we have a pretty simple entry process. All you need to do is fill out an online entry form before the entry deadline, which is 12 p.m. EDT, that's Eastern Time, US, by Thursday, the 12th of September, 2024. So do pay attention if you're in another part of the world to that time zone difference and ensure that you know what time that is in your time zone. We are not accepting entries in any other form than the online entry form. We do have a PDF form there for you. You can download it. It's just there for reference, so you can look through all the questions, but you do need to fill out the online entry form. And we also have an optional 3-minute video that you can add to your entry form. And this is really useful if you have visuals that you want to show our judging panel. So we definitely are not looking for high production value at all. You could have a slideshow and record yourself talking through that slideshow for 3 minutes or less. It's really just an opportunity, like I said, for you to provide a visual element to accompany your entry form. And before you submit, definitely take a look at our terms and conditions, understand what it means to take part in this challenge, look at the privacy policy and how we use your data, and of course, go back and revisit the eligibility criteria, the challenge statement that I ran through, and the judging criteria as well. And all of that is linked in the entry form as well as in our website. So I'll just run through very quickly what to expect when you're filling out the entry form. So when you go and click on our link to the online entry form, you'll be taken first to an eligibility form. And that's a simple, almost checklist, like yes or no questions, multiple choice questions that runs you through the eligibility criteria again, and helps you understand if you're eligible. If you fill it out, if you are eligible, you will be moved to the next stage, which is the entry form. And there are 4 parts to this form. You will notice that only one of these parts is actually being reviewed against the judging criteria by our assessors and judges. The other parts are providing information and context. So for example, part 1, that's of course just your basic details, how we can get in touch with you, the type of organization you are as well. And then part 2, your solution. This is where you explain how your solution meets the entry criteria. And how it is going to be impactful within Eastern Market and the city of Detroit. And then additional information, we always like to ensure that we are monitoring our impact as a program. So at different points, if you do participate in this challenge, we will be asking you for impact information. And this is one of the points. So we use that to understand, to kind of set a baseline and understand our impact. And finally, you're just declaring that everything that you've told us is true according to your knowledge. So hopefully it should be a pretty straightforward process. And Fulvia, oh, sorry, I see your hand is up. Was there something that you wanted to
Yes,
bring?
Nassim, can you address if while filling the form, is it possible to save it and continue it a second time?
Yes, so that it is definitely possible to save the form. I think it actually saves automatically, but I would advise you to save your answers like on a Word document as well, just to make sure if there are any tech issues, you have like a backup. You don't need to rewrite it. So hope it is a platform that is usually pretty stable and works really well. But as you know, with any online platform, if there's an internet connection issue, you don't want to be losing your data. So you can save it and come back to it. But I recommend always having an offline backup, which you could just, once you filled out something, just copy paste it somewhere else. And you can also collaborate on your form. So you can also share it with different members of your team and they can input into it. Cool. Great, and we do have one more slide and then we'll go into the Q&A, but we do want to do a little bit of a temp check, see where everybody is. So we're going to launch a really quick poll just to find out how everybody's doing, because we've been doing a lot of talking, so we'd like to hear from you a little bit.
Launching now.
Thank you. Great, so if you could fill out this poll, let us know how things are going, how you're feeling. And as everybody is filling that out, I see some responses coming in. I'm also going to move us to this slide. Definitely fill that poll in. There we go. So how do you get into contact with us? How do you engage in entrance support? Because you're here, hopefully you've visited our website already, but just to highlight that you can book a one-to-one session with us as well. So once you've had time to think about your entry, you've gone through the materials, you're ready to ask us questions, definitely go book those in. You can even book them way in advance if you're not ready right now, just to make sure you're reserving a slot because we don't have an infinite number of slots. If you do have a specific question, you're having any kind of trouble with your entry, you can always email us at info@sustainablecitieschallenge.org. Do try to get any questions in before or by the 4th of September, just to make sure that we have enough time to respond to you. So just keep that in mind. And then finally, just a note to say that if you do have any questions, please use the processes or the channels in the slide, please don't go directly to the city of Detroit or to Eastern Market at this stage, because they just won't be able to respond to you. So we have all of the information, and we have a system set up to respond to questions and to support you, whereas the city of Detroit or Eastern Market might become overwhelmed by everything. So please reach out to us directly as your first port of call. Great. I think we have a pretty good response rate for the poll, so maybe we'll close that down. Thank you so much for letting us know how you feel. It seems like most people understand a bit about the challenge. A couple of people seem like you have some questions, which is great because we're going to the Q&A now. So for those of you who don't seem to understand based on everything we presented, this is the perfect opportunity to start asking your questions.
And Nassim, there are a couple of questions in the Q&A chat. Would you like me to read them, or can you access it?
Yes, please, if you can read them, that'd be great.
Of course. So the first one is, just a second. Could you share any quantitative information about the scope of the challenge? How much idling time, partial loads, empty miles are currently happening?
That is a really good question, and we've had a few questions about that type of data so far. So we don't have that data available right now. We are working to ensure that we can provide some data by the start of the semi-finalist stage. So if your putting together your solution is going to depend on some of this data, please do book a one-to-one call with us, and we can talk through it with you and advise you on how you can basically make assumptions as you're putting together your entry. I also know that we do have somebody from the city online. If they want to add anything, feel free to raise your hand as well. I see Vince. I'm going to allow you to speak.
Nassim, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yeah, no, I would just add that you're right on with the suggestion of the one-on-one meeting. We are working to pull together some of this data, but in the big picture, we're probably going to be targeting multiple partnerships. And in those partnerships, some of this information will come to light as far as the freight operations in the market.
Great, thank you, Vince. I hope that answered the question, but anything else, follow-ups, let us know.
Okay, Nassim, maybe I'll read you the next question, which is, will we be notified of our eligibility once the form has been accepted?
Yes, you will be notified about your eligibility. So it depends on the stage. So if you submitted before the deadline and we go through the process, we will let you know if you were ineligible and unable to make it. But as always, you can email us and ask us ahead of time if you are eligible, and we can give you some advice about that if you are unsure. But if you do go through just submitting the form, you'll find out through that process if you're eligible or not.
Thank you, Nassim. There are other few questions, if you don't mind me reading. The next one is, in general, are small-sized cargo vehicles, e.g. cargo bikes, a good substantive fit for the challenge?
That is a good question. I don't think that we're doing those types of micromobility solutions in this challenge. It's more about working with the suppliers who are already there, but I'll also hand over to Vince because I see your hand is up as well.
Nassim, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I think there is room for a targeted implementation of a micro freight solution, but it would need to be it would need to fit into a use case that made sense for the market. And so a lot of the initial discovery that has happened is targeting Class 8 vehicles and then distribution vehicles, but there has been some conversation about how smaller, shorter distance microfreight vehicles might fit in.
Thank you, Vince. So yeah, I stand corrected. So there are use cases for microfreight within this. So that sounds great.
Thank you both. I'll read you the next question. Can you provide us with more information about the use cases, like what goods are being transported from where to where, what vehicles are being used, who is doing the logistics, is farmers, logistic companies, which one? How many electric vehicles are already in use?
I will hand over to Vince again, as he has the most detailed contextual information on all this.
Thanks, Nassim. So to give, let me see if I can answer those questions in order. So the Eastern market operations, it operates daily. There are multiple markets that take place. The one that we have been looking at primarily as the daily market is the produce market, provides most of the produce for fresh produce for the city of Detroit in any given day. The vehicles do come in from farms and freight providers. So the individual businesses are bringing the freight in. It is not a centrally organized operation. So it essentially is multiple freight deliveries that come in through distribution points and points of sale. And then it leaves from a couple different sheds, they call them, that are the transfer stations for freight and produce. There are other items that come through the market, including meat and poultry, and some larger providers that are fully on their own, that are operating at a much larger scale than the smaller scale farmer growers. But for the most part, the questions around what kinds of vehicles there are, there's all kinds of vehicles unfortunately involved, and the number of EVs involved is minimal. There's no currently there are no EV deployment dedicated routes, which is again the kind of thing where if you did have an interesting proposal or could make the case that a certain route would make sense, that's the kind of thing that we would be interested in.
Amazing, thank you.
There is another similar question. Do we have any data regarding the distance that freight needs to travel and the size of freight's load?
Again, I would hand over to Vince.
So the Southeast Michigan area in which Detroit is centered, the full travel radius of the farm growers that come in can be up to 300 miles. It's not usually that far, but it depends on the crop. That being said, there's the freight coming in, and that comes from farms across the state, and in fact, across the country. And in the case of the international border, there are tomatoes that come in from Canada. And so there is, I would say, comfortably 150 mile radius of regular growers to the market. From the market, you have smaller scale vehicles that are coming in, doing their purchasing, and then leaving. And those vehicles are doing more frequent trips, but they can be much shorter distances to local restaurants, grocery stores, hospitals, hotels, and so schools, any place where they serve food. So there's really an opportunity to target medium haul down to a very small haul, and then even intra-market activity as well. So that could be a single vehicle going back and forth between two providers of food manufacturers that goes 10 times a day. So there's almost any scale that you could want to get to, and there's some that there are a few providers that go very much long haul in a multi-state area as well.
Thank you. Oh, sorry, Nassim, go ahead.
No, I was saying the exact same thing you were.
Yes, I'm going to continue with reading the question. Following on the same kind of conversation is the information seems to be focused on heavy cargo and medium to long distance. Is there interest in sustainable freight solution in the area around Eastern Market under 10 miles and the market itself?
Nassim, do you want me to answer that?
Yes, please.
I would say yes. Again, I think part of the we are open to any and all innovation that tackles the reduction in diesel runtime and pollutants. So if you have a good idea and you can make the case, then we are open and interested to it. And even if it involves, I would say Detroit is in a very innovation friendly ecosystem right now. We're the home of the auto industry, the domestic auto industry in the United States, and there's a lot of change happening as that industry transitions to more of a mobility industry, and so our area here is really interested in finding new ways of doing things. So if there is a creative idea, and you can make a compelling case for it, we'd like to see it.
Thank you again, Vince. Is there any opportunities of days that one can observe the freight operation at the Eastern Market?
Correct. Yeah, I think that's a great question. We do have the in-person academy that will be taking place in December. We'll be able to go in there. But in terms of ahead of time, if you're already in Detroit and you want to swing by in the Eastern Market, again, I would urge everyone not to directly contact them, just to make sure that they're not overwhelmed with requests. But I'm assuming, Vance, that it's possible to just go over to the Eastern Market if you are in Detroit. Is that something that people can do as they're putting together their entries?
Yeah, I would, Nassim, to your point, and it's a perfectly reasonable ask. There's going to be different levels of access that people will have over the course of the challenge. I think sticking largely to what kind of observations can be made in the public right away is the first phase. As Nassim mentioned, we're going to be adding data as we go, but there is a nuance that every applicant should be aware of, and that is it's an essential operation. People have to eat, and the food comes in the morning, and it gets out it gets to where it needs to be, and it starts over again day after day. It's not designed like a test laboratory where people can go in and poke around and ask questions. And so we will, as the challenge progresses, work with the providers in order to help make sure that that's happening in a way that doesn't disrupt operation, because I'm sure you can appreciate how willingness to participate or interest to participate can be affected by disruption. And so what I would say in the beginning is, if you are local, if you're around and you want to go and sort of see what you can see from the public right away, without triggering any response or concern, that's perfectly fine. There's a big Saturday market that happens. There's a Sunday market. There's a Tuesday market that happens as well. and you can see a lot of the in and out freight operation. And then there's big data that has done top route studies and stuff that's available, and we'll be pulling together a lot of the publicly available resources on the data, as well as adding to it over time. But I would caution anybody I wouldn't go and start asking questions and cozying up to freight providers until you get the green light to do so as part of the challenge.
Thank you, Vince. And yeah, just to reiterate what Vince said, please don't be disruptive at this stage. There's going to be plenty of opportunity to start building those relationships if you are successful in the semi-finalist stage.
Thank you, Nassine. There are a few more questions to answer. The next one is, what type of costs are allowed to be covered by the grants? For example, can they be used for compensation for the time spent with team personnel?
I'll hand this over to Janet.
Thanks, Nassine. So yeah, that's a great question. In terms of that grant, there's a lot of flexibility in terms of what you can use it for. So yes, time spent by the team, so staff that you're using on this program, on this innovation challenge, but also, for example, if you're traveling to Detroit and you have costs associated with that travel accommodation, so that grant should also be used for that. It could be used for user testing. So it's for a range of different things. And as part of the agreement that if you were successful and selected as a semi-finalist, you would have an agreement with Toyota Mobility Foundation, and that would outline any specific areas that you couldn't spend that grant on. But yes, generally it's used to subsidize the costs that you'll be putting into as participating in this challenge. Hopefully that's a useful response to your question.
Thank you, Janet. I'll continue with the next one, which is, are autonomous vehicles an option? And if so, would it be possible to record points cloud and mapping data of a limited demonstration area?
A really great question. I think I'll hand over to Vince again.
I would say yes. We're very interested in solutions like that. Again, where they would be most effective is something that a successful applicant would as we work together to provide initial data. I think it's about making the case for it, but I think that there's a great deal of interest in autonomous vehicles if the case can be made that it's the right solution for the market. I would also add that the city of Detroit has has been working with the innovation community to try and be as progressive and responsive as possible in terms of permitting and licensing and regulation. And that is to say, we don't want to allow anything that is unsafe, but we do recognize that the commodity of time is a precious resource for innovators, and that oftentimes government doesn't respond well to that. So what we've done is we've, in certain circumstances, we've been able to sort of consolidate our city departments, so you can have a single meeting on a new project that may require some kind of permit or licensing, so that instead of trying to find your way around City Hall, you can have a single meeting and find out how to do something safely in compliance with all city regulations, and one that is inclusive of our residents in the city. And so, essentially, we try and get you through a process that starts with a yes, and we figure out how to make sure it's a yes that's safe and inclusive. But to that point, we are very interested in new technologies and new approaches.
Thank you, Vincent. Janet, I saw your message. Shall we continue? Let me just see how many questions we still have.
I think we've got about 4 left. I'm just
Yes,
conscious
we
of
do have
time.
4 left.
Yeah, I'm conscious of time. So if it's useful, Fulvia, I can answer a couple. I can answer this one that I think is a very quick one, and then we can maybe jump into the rest of them for Vince and perhaps John, who's on the line. So I think Hakan Yildiz has asked. I already asked this via email, and you answered that multiple teams of students from a university are eligible to participate. Can you please confirm? Yes, that is correct, Hakan. Students need to be part of the university, and it's the university who would be the lead entrant in terms of the entry to the challenge. So they would have to be listed as leading the submission that's being put through. And if you are a university plus a consortium with another organization, that's also fine. So as long as the university is either the lead entrant or as part of a consortium, students can apply. They also need to be 18 years or older. So we do need to have that confirmation, please. And then I guess with the remaining ones, maybe we can pick up on the next one, which is about, I guess, question for Vince. If there are ways to learn more about Eastern Market, its context and general landscape beyond what's provided in the handbook, where can that information be sourced if they're not from Michigan or from the US? Do you have any recommended materials that maybe we could signpost them towards?
Yes, Janet, absolutely. There's a couple key considerations. You mentioned in the introduction that the Eastern Market is planned, has a development and expansion plan that is available on the City of Detroit's website at detroitmi.gov. If you look in the planning department, it is a framework plan for the expansion of Eastern Market. And there's a lot of detail in there about a 5 and 20-year plan. Eastern Market also has on their website a 5-year development plan that they've put together. Both of these are very helpful. I'd also point out that adjacent to the market is currently serviced by a interstate freeway, and one section of it is under review for removal. So a lot of traffic analysis has been done at the Michigan Department of State level, where the Michigan Department of Transportation, MDOT, has a project called Connecting Communities, and the name of the interstate is Interstate 375. Those three sources are great sources for information about the conditions in and around the market. And I would point anybody to any of them, and I can supply you with the links for all those.
Brilliant. Thanks, Vince. Fulvia, I'll hand back over to you to take us through the remaining questions.
Thank you, Janet. Sure. So the next one is what is a typical size of a freight load in the short range intra-market use case? For example, 2 pallets, 10 pallets, or 20 pallets?
This is definitely another Vince question.
So again, in my role at the City of Detroit, I can tell you what I have observed. So it would be fully anecdotal, but I have seen I've seen all of those loads, and that is, realistically speaking, part of why we are doing this challenge. There is, I think, a strong sense amongst the operators and amongst folks that have sort of given this an initial look that there is a lot of potential efficiency, and there's a lot of inefficiency built into the system. That said, the system works to deliver the food that it needs to deliver. So we are interested in addressing some of the empty volume that we're moving around for sure, but we have to find a strategic path to identify that volume and figure out how to eliminate it.
Thank you, Vince. We have the last question. I'll read it out. Looking ahead, can successful pilots transition into permanent elements of Eastern markets? What might the procurement competition process looks like after the pilot, if it's known?
Yeah, so I can answer this. So the winning solutions, once they're selected, you'll actually be receiving an implementation grant, which means that you will need to go on to implement your solution with an Eastern Market. So exactly what that looks like will be a process where you design that together with TMF, with the city, with a supplier in Eastern Market. So the goal here is that you can actually go on and implement your solution if you win. So that is the ultimate goal. I wouldn't call it procurement, but that's what we're aiming for. I don't know, Janet or Vince, if you have anything else to add.
I would add that again speaking to the innovation ecosystem that exists in Detroit and in Michigan right now, we see this as a very important time in a core industry, the mobility industry in the city of Detroit. And so we have actually been able to connect with our state initiatives. Our goal on the city and state side for this project is to find great ideas that become a stepping stone for larger clean freight conversation on a statewide level. So there's nothing necessarily to report today, but as the timing of this project comes together, if we see promising solutions, I am hopeful that those solutions end up connecting with additional programmatic opportunities going forward.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Vince. And thank you all so much for attending today. We'll wrap up now. I think there was a question I answered by text, which is we're going to update the FAQs page on the website with some of these questions, and we'll send that to you. We're also going to send you the recording from today, as well as the slides. But we hope you found this useful. Thank you for all your questions. We really appreciated your engagement. And thank you, Vince, for being here and answering all the very contextual technical questions. Really appreciate that as well. But yeah, we're almost exactly on time. So great time management. And we hope to see you or hear from you throughout the next few months and to get some really great entries from everyone. So thanks all.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Bye.